Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Motormouth and Wild Bill Winters. And, this is going to be a great broadcast, and I'm hoping we get an opportunity to do it more often, as I got two of my thoroughbreds ready to go ahead and race, okay, or I want to call my heavyweight fighters. Oh, what the heck's the difference? It's all the cotton-picking sports game anyways. I want to welcome Rick Curti and, once again, my regular co-host, Bill Winters. And, guys, glad to have you on together this evening.
Thanks, Scott.
Nice to be here.
Good. So anyways, okay, let's go over some interesting points here, okay? And we want to talk about the pocket QBs. Rick, go ahead.
Well, I was always wondering, because we have a new trend in football now, and these pocket quarterbacks, even though they're very, very important, people like the pocket quarterbacks. Now we have a new trend with these running QBs like a Lamar Jackson, RG3. I think the first one I ever saw was Randall Cunningham. He was very spectacular. And, of course, we had Michael Vick. But I was always wondering, do you ever see a non-pocket quarterback lasting like 20 years in the NFL, sort of like a Tom Brady? What do you think, Bill?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think it's going to be an organizational decision, team by team. Teams like the Baltimore Ravens, who I believe have always been ahead of the yield curve. Scott and I talked about this last time. They had one of the best general managers of Ozzie Newsome. In fact, Ozzie Newsome's last draft choice was Lamar Jackson out of Louisville. One of my old teammates, Rick Neuheisel, used to be the quarterback coach with Steve McNair with the Ravens. And I can remember when Vince Young and Matt Leinart and all those guys were coming out at the same time. I asked Rick, what's the NFL thinking about as far as quarterbacks? Who's the best one? Who would they draft? And Rick turned around to me and I said, Bill, the NFL is leaning towards a Bo Jackson type athlete that can play quarterback. And it kind of stuck with me. And it didn't surprise me that Ozzie drafted Lamar. They've made a commitment to that philosophy. And I'm not completely sold on it. And the reason is, I come from a day where you work smart instead of harder. And I'm a big, I love Steve Young. I played against him several times. I think what you're going to have to do is you're going to have a quarterback that can sit in the pocket as much as he can. But if the play breaks down, he's got to be able to make plays with his legs. And you don't necessarily have to be a Lamar Jackson and be like that and run. Just get out of bounds and move the chains. So it's going to be a combination of, and it's going to be interesting to see what shakes out because, Patrick Mahomes ran around back there like the Fran Tarkenton. And I was shocked to hear that he didn't even know how to read coverages yet. So he's still got a tremendous upside, and he already won a Super Bowl. So there's a new breed of cat coming to play quarterback where I think they're going to be able to do both.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be hard to determine. I think what is a question mark for me is that, sort of like a Lamar Jackson or RG3, they don't have that body type. I guess you'd have to have the same body type like a Cam Newton who's 6'5", 250. But I think what happened with the Panthers is that they tried to make him too much like a pocket quarterback, and they didn't utilize Cam's real talent like in the running. And and now that he's going to be going to another team, where do you see Cam Newton going?
I don't see him going anywhere right now until after the draft and after this coronavirus is done, so they can find out how healthy he is. And he's going to have to take a major pay cut and come in as a backup. Maybe Elway will take a shot at it with Denver because they're kind of lean. But I think, that they're going to have to design a package for him. And I've had this conversation with Scott lots of times. You need two quarterbacks to be able to make it. And so, I knew that when Tepper bought the Panthers that Cam was out of there. They want their new people. And, of course, Matt Rule had his career made by his second-string quarterback, who I got the privilege to work with a little bit with the Houston Roughnecks with P.J. Walker. Because Rule was at Temple. So they got a good 1-2 punch there. And Bridgewater's going to be that kind of guy that's going to be able to sit in the pocket and read coverages. And if they get behind and everything else, they may wind up bringing in PJ, be able to make some plays with his legs. And that's not bad football. So it might be an upgrade at the quarterback position for production, which is all the National Football League's about. And Cam will find a home, but it's going to be a while, and he's in the same boat as Jameis Winston and Jadeveon Clowney. They make way too much money. Okay, and they've kind of hit the top of their career. They're on the downslide, but they still got a lot of juice left in them. And some organization will take a shot once all this virus stuff goes away. They can take a clear evaluation of how injury it is and who's got who from the draft.
Okay, let's go on. Go ahead, Rick.
No, go ahead.
No, that's all right. Go ahead. Continue.
No, I think the whole thing with this question mark is with the whole coronavirus. This thing could just disappear tomorrow. It could be here till like the end of summer. It could be here another year. We don't all know, and I think that's the whole deciding factor on that. And I think it's hurt a lot. It's just hurt everything. Now the Olympics are going to be canceling or postponed till 2021. The XFL is going to be suspended their season and things like that. So, and then this draft, which is going to be really unusual. They already moved it out of Las Vegas, and I was wondering how this, what are the teams going to do to kind of get around this whole virus thing?
They're not. They're going to work out of their house just like everybody else is right now. In fact, Roger Goodell laid the hammer down, saying you guys share the information, you'll be fine. The National Football League is a really, it's not like Major League Baseball where they actually got together today and are paying the players 4% of their salary, and they get a year's of eligibility. So the Dodgers are screaming bloody murder because they may not even get Mookie Betts, and then he's got a 1 year, with the draft. But see, that's how that union is really strong. The National Football League Players Association is the weakest union in this country because the owners have all the money, and you're dealing with a totally different dynamic. So Roger Goodell basically put the hammer down on these guys. We're going to have the draft. Okay, you run your mouth. And you share the information, there's going to be a repercussion here. So all the teams are going to be closed-lipped about what they're going to do. And the next thing is the players' physicals. Of course, the NFLPA is going to come back and say, hey, wait a minute. We need a third party here to make a look at Cam Newton, because we don't know if the doctor is on the side of the team, okay, and being dictator for owner, which is what went on in my generation and when Scott covered the Lions. Okay, so that's where a lot of abuse came in. So we're really looking forward to the younger generation getting the economics and battling some of these things and fixing it through intelligent discourse. That's one of the motivations for my show, to try to educate people about, from my generation, was 76 to 87. But to answer your question, this coronavirus, is throwing a monkey wrench in a well-oiled machine, but the owners are going to continue to run that machine, but they're going to make everybody work from home, and you're going to have to really be sharp with social media. So this could be a huge positive for the league moving forward, because guys are going to have to learn to keep their mouth shut on social media. Okay, they're going to have to learn how to play the game the way it should be played. Okay, and I think we're at this yield curve of all the way to the left right now. Okay, and not being able to carry on intelligent conversations and saying this or that because two parties can't get in a room and work through their differences. Okay, it's going to swing back to the middle again, and that's what I'm hoping our show is going to do for a lot of the young people out there, and I really think we're going to be able to kick some butt because it's not about name calling. It's about increased production and spreading the wealth out so everybody gets a fair chance. And NFL football is an indicator of how the country operates. All right, and if we can lead by example, okay, and play good football on the field and respect our country and do all the right things and come together, then it benefits everybody.
Okay, let's go on to our next subject. The Rockets fiasco, China. Let's refer to as a Daryl Morey tweet. Let me both of you give me your own perspectives on that.
Well, he messed up. I mean, he tried to get. That's one thing about sports. You don't try to mix politics with sports. Even though there is a lot of politics in sports, and I'm sure we're talking about people trying to get more educated on social media and stuff like that. Here's one thing Daryl Morey needs to do: don't send, because he really messed up that relationship. And the next day he tried to do the Michael Jackson moonwalk and backtrack, and I didn't really mean that. And Adam Silver was thrown in, and I know he was furious with this. And then LeBron James made it worse by trying to downplay it, and everybody went on Twitter and blasted LeBron James for trying to smooth things over, and it's just a big mess. And China's a very powerful country, and that's one thing they don't want. They don't want people, especially outsiders, telling them how to run things, and things went. So Daryl Morey, that's one thing he wish he can do back in his career is he wish he didn't have to send that tweet.
That goes to what I was just talking about. That was sucker punch number one. This virus is sucker punch number two, because people do not understand how to use social media. All right, and people that are really intelligent stay off of it. I understand about Twitter. I'm really looking forward to learning from you, Rick, because I think there's some people out there who know how to use it in a positive manner. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you right now, Daryl Morey, I just had to laugh at how idiotic he was by actually talking to the guys that is the biggest market for the NBA, which is China. Almost 3 times as much money is made in China with the NBA than it is in the United States. And then you have all these guys running their mouth about social issues, okay, and don't know to keep their mouth shut during the course of the season and use those platforms in the off season in a more positive way. They want to do things during events to politicize things, which is not what the sport's about. So when they did that, revenues went down dramatically. It was dramatically affected ESPN. And then Daryl Morey does this, and, no matter what you say, okay, it cost them billions. And then you have a lot of guys that have their foot in their mouths that basically are sitting here going, well, we support China. Next thing you know, their paychecks are cut off and they're backtracking. All right, so the reality of it is we have to learn how to manage social media, okay, and that's one of the reasons why I do this show is I consider myself to be a little bit of an educator based on my experience because I'm a survivor, okay, and also Stoop over there. I can't believe he hasn't said anything so far, but the reality of it is that he's been around a long time, and, we have the proper perspective. And I really believe in the long run that we're going to beat some people's brains in just because of our intellect and our ability to educate people on the proper way to do things.
Well, now I did tell you guys that I was kind of taking somewhat of a show off while I brought you two together, and I'll incorporate where necessary. And I'm really enjoying this a lot, just to see you guys compare ideas and philosophies. I really am. So it's a nice, refreshing change of pace when you're able to talk about different subjects that during different courses of all the different shows we have, our show, Bill, and the Sports Exchange, that they've all come in. Now I have 2 different individuals talking about them together. So I think it's kind of neat. I really do. So that's good. And I'm trying to come up with the most interesting ideas here so that you guys can collaborate on what you guys have said and combine them into one broadcast. So,
appreciate that, Scott.
No problem. I told you I don't mind deferring once in a while. I mean, after all, last night I had to be the point guard and take over at the end winners while he let me steamroll through the last part.
And everything, you were hot. Everything you were shooting was going in.
Yeah, well,
so, I'm no fool, man. I want to keep my job. Feed it to the guard because he's hot.
Well, so we were.
Somebody else might be hot, man. It is what it is.
So we were in the zone a little bit. I had a little Isaiah Thomas in me, man, or Magic Johnson, man. I had to have a little bit of those guys, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll go you one better with Daryl Morey. We have a team, the Rockets, that have been built on analytics.
Yeah.
And, we had this conversation about how they wanted to play small ball. And it kind of, they weren't going to have anybody on their roster that started that was under 6'6". Okay, and they started winning 9-2, and the media started running with it a little bit. Then they played the Clippers and got blown out by 40 points. And you sit here going, it was almost laughable. And, this is the thing that, I kind of laugh at. I'm not quite Charles Barkley, okay, but I understand where he comes from. But I also think this young generation coming up is smart enough to learn from the mistakes of going the other way with everything, to the point where we're doing everything by social media and analytics. And it's really a death combination between the two. Okay, and that's where I think is going to go on. I wrote a book a long time ago, From the Outhouse to the Penthouse and Somewhere in Between. That pendulum really hasn't changed in the 40 or 50 years of pro sports. In fact, Scott and I were talking last night about, the basketball game between Michigan State and
Indiana State.
Indiana State. Okay, that was the first time. There were like 3 or 4 stations, and ESPN was first starting out. And I can remember that I owe that ESPN a lot, because it prolonged my pro career. All right, and, I just saw the evolution of it, and now I see that it's accelerated so far to the left that, it's bordering on the ridiculous. So hopefully things like Morey and some of the other stuff that's going on will bring that pendulum back to the middle so we have the balance that we really deserve moving forward.
All right, let's go on. Let's stay in the city of Houston, and one of Rick Curti's favorite lines is called that village idiot, and I'm referring to Bill O'Brien. Okay, guys, go for it.
Picking on Houston so much, Bill. I love Houston, but I mean, it's just, first we had Daryl Morey, now we have another idiot here, and Bill O'Brien, and I'm just still scratching my head and still trying to get around this whole, trade with Sammy Watkins. I mean, one of their best players. One of the best players in the league, and to trade someone in their prime
right.
for no number one picks, and to get an aging tailback and things like that. And then apparently Bill O'Brien said some comments where he said that he didn't ever talk to a player like this since from the Patriots.
Anthony Hernandez.
Yeah, so
right.
I mean, it's
Aaron Hernandez.
What's going on, and I have no idea what in the world Bill O'Brien is doing. I mean, they compared him. They said on ESPN that he's got Bill Belichick power, but Marvin Lewis resume. So, how do you feel about Bill O'Brien? How he's doing as the new now that he's got all this power with the Houston Texans?
All right, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. All right, first of all, he's smarter than everybody else, and the reason I say that, he's 52-44. With 4 AFC South titles in 6 seasons as a head coach.
Okay.
All right, period. That's a .542 winning percentage with an organization that really needed to be spanked. Because when I came out here, I could not believe it was a social club. It was an expansion team that never grew up. All right, and what I mean by that is they learned their lesson a long time ago when they gave the 2 expansion teams that was believed as the Carolina Panthers and the Jacksonville Jaguars all the groceries when they were expansion teams, and they immediately started winning. Coaching is highly overrated. You win with players. Jimmy Johnson is one of the worst coaches I've ever met in my life. I coached against him at the University of Florida, but boy, did he know personnel. And boy, did he know how to build a team. And boy, did he know how to surround himself with assistant coaches. But he was a pretty good defensive coach. But you win with players. The Dallas Cowboys had the best offensive line in football, and Emmitt Smith ran behind the line, just opened up holes you could drive a truck through, and I coached them in Florida briefly. All right, so I saw it on both ends. A guy couldn't get through the line of scrimmage with an offensive line that had computer serious restrictions because of Charlie Pell, and then he goes to a paradise called the best offensive line in football. So when he inherited the Texans, Rick, you had Jadeveon Clowney, who was from South Carolina, and you also had DeAndre Hopkins from South Carolina. And I'm sitting there going, how could you pass on Khalil Mack? How could you pass on Patrick Mahomes? I mean, I'm not a general manager, but I would have been a pretty good one. And the thing that I look at, I've been around in football in almost every angle. I can size a guy up pretty quick in a matter of minutes. Okay, I actually went to one combine, and I was just laughing. I'm going, these people don't know what they're doing because they never played the game.
Yeah.
I'm a Parcells disciple. Okay, period. You win with talent. Okay, and the reality of it is you have to be able to manage the salary cap. All right, so the first thing is Clowney was overpaid from day one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and he's been a decent defensive end. I'm not going to lie to you, and he had some really good careers. But he had to go. Why? Because your production is down and you're asking for way too much money. Now, from a player's point of view, okay, that's the right thing to do. And I totally support them. And if I was a player on the Texans, I would go get him, Jadeveon, go get him. Because I've been on that side of the fence. And the reality of it is he went to Seattle. He's coached by a guy that I know fairly well, Ken Norton. All right, and he went out there and had an average year with 3 sacks. That's why they jettisoned him out of there. So he's going to sit back. He's going to sit back and wait because somebody's going to go down. He's either to re-sign with Seattle and take a pay cut and on a 1-year contract and produce. Okay, then turn around again and ask for his money because he's at that, what I call that top tier, because he's the number 1 draft choice. And you love those guys. You love anybody who can get leverage on a ball club because there's so few. Deion Sanders is my hero. Because when Deion signed his contract, it was one of the worst pro contracts in sports. And when he found out what he was making, he decided to create Neon Deion, and he had so much talent. And he was able to overcome it, but there's so few guys like that you're happy for any guy who can get what he can get. Now, as far as O'Brien jettisoning DeAndre Hopkins, okay, it's real simple. And I love the hype. DeAndre Hopkins is a great receiver with great hands. But he's not the best receiver in football either. Mm-hmm. Okay, but he's in the top 3 or 5 and deserves to be paid like one. And he's asking for the money, and he deserves the money. But the problem is we're trying to build a team that's going to be consistent over time. You can't put all your eggs in one basket because they've got Deshaun Watson and Tunsil to sign. Yeah. Okay, and they're going to and let me tell you this: Deshaun Watson's going to get an ungodly amount of money because of the way the market's going. So teams are sitting back and going, "Hey, look, I've got a great receiver here, and I love him to death." And I'll tell you the truth that really pissed me off. Okay, is the nonsense that goes on about guys, what Michael Irvin. Michael Irvin is a nice guy, but he runs his mouth too much. If you know his career with the Dallas Cowboys, and I love Michael Irvin too, but there's times you need to keep your mouth shut because of the stuff that he did. Okay, talking about bringing the race card into it and all this other stuff is all bullshit.
I agree.
This is business. This is business. Okay, and the thing that, and people go half-cocked. I mean, I remember when they talk about Johnny Manziel. I said, Johnny Manziel can't play in the National Football League. Period. Okay, I mean, I just laughed. And I knew the kid intimately well. All right, I didn't need a scout telling me that or whatever because I've been around. I played one of the best quarterback coaches ever, Steve Spurrier. I was a quarterback myself, so I know what to look for. But to get back to DeAndre Hopkins and the Texans and OBrien, I'm glad it's a great for both teams. DeAndre Hopkins is getting his money. He's going to go to a franchise that never has really won, the Arizona Cardinals. And one of the reasons why they've never won is they make decisions like this. But they have their organization, and they're going to the philosophy of trying to be the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, I honestly don't think it's going to hold up. If Tyler Murray, trust me, he's going to take a pounding. Okay, yeah. And they're going to have great receivers, but they're willing to run that offense. Okay, and so you love it. They're all in, and that's, you never know. I could be dead wrong, but I doubt it. So DeAndre Hopkins is happy because he's getting his money, but I see the Texans benefiting by getting some solid players. And over the hill, I'll take guys that are older veterans, all right, rather than these young guys who come out and get hurt the first year in the league because they're not man enough to handle the pounding because they're playing against grown-ass men like me. Deshaun Watson blows his knee out dropping back to cover. That set the organization back a year, and he still stayed with them.
Yeah.
Why? Because they invested a ton of money in this. This is all about money and investing in production. Okay, period. All this other nonsense is nonsense. It's hype by a bunch of people who are one step behind what's really going on inside the locker room. This is business. And all I'm saying is this guy has come in here and turned this organization around. I've met a lot of the Texans players, and I have to laugh. I was sitting back and going, one made his entire career on supplements. He could never stay healthy. Brian Cushing.
Yep. And
ran his mouth like he's some superstar. And I said, I watched him on the Hard Knocks, and I'm sitting there, I want to put my pads on and run him over myself. Okay, I'm serious. I love J.J. Watt to death. Okay, but the guy has not been healthy the last 2 or 3 years. When he's in there, he's a motherfucker. Excuse my French. But, I'm looking for a guy who can go 18 games, all right, and a guy who can hold up to the pounding, okay, and continue to perform like Khalil Mack. Okay, and those types of players. And the reality of it is he jettisoned the general manager. Why? Because the man knows talent, been around a long time, and has done it at Penn State, okay, done it at New England, and understands the culture and what wins inside the locker room. Period. That's my opinion. I've got a guy right now who I honestly, he's a nice guy. He's on the internet trying to get a petition to be the general manager of the Texans. And he has no experience. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's 2 steps behind. And I love him to death. But that's just the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
all right, so that you asked me for my opinion, I'm going to tell you.
All right, let me give you my opinion.
What you have to say.
I'll tell you what I have to say. If you're going to say Deion Sanders is, you idolize him and he's your favorite player, I should stick you in the doghouse is what I should do and leave you there. Hold on. Wait a minute.
From a business point of view.
I know. Listen. I haven't said much here. I've been a good soldier, not losing my voice. Yeah, I know he's a good businessman in your eyes. But when a guy tells the Ford family that they couldn't afford him, you tell me, does he have brains or rocks in his head? Because the Ford family is one of the richest families around, okay? My idol is actually Barry Sanders, so I got a Sanders, not that one. Okay, so don't ever tell me Deion Sanders is business. I don't really care about him. If you tell the Ford family, forget about what they've done on the field. That's another day conversation. But you're telling me you can't afford me, don't draft me. Well, they didn't need to. Barry was more than fine, and he made it to the Hall of Fame. So, all right, you're entitled to your opinion about Deion Sanders.
Scott, hold on a second.
Sure.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Make sure you understand where I'm coming from.
Okay.
You know, Deion Sanders said probably popped off.
Right.
Okay, like you can't afford me when he's in college. That's what you're referring to?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. Now, do you know that he signed one of the worst contracts in pro football history?
Yeah, what, the Atlanta Falcons?
Didn't even realize it?
That shows you how stupid he is.
What he did is, I'm not sure, and don't quote me on this, but I think he had some rapper do his contract.
Well, good. All the more reason why he...
understand, when he found out, and I heard this story through the grapevine through a girlfriend that knew him, and then she said that when he found out how underpaid he was generally embarrassed.
Yeah, okay. Well...
Okay, so what he did, and this is why he's my hero,
okay.
He had so much talent that he said, well, he's going to stick it to me like this? All right, I'm going to turn around and stick it to you. And he created Neon Deion, and actually created a hot dog maker and everything else. And his play he was able to overcome these bean counters who would sell their mother down the river for a quarter.
Right.
If they could, because that's what they are. They're general managers. Okay, so to me, that's why he's a hero.
Well, good.
He backed it up with his play and got his money.
And it didn't hurt that he played two sports to make up for the cabbage that he lost a little. But I'm going to say one thing about Deion Sanders, guys, and that's this, okay? First of all, he should have gotten Bobby Bonilla's agent, or he should have gotten Christian Yelich's agent. And then maybe you can convince me he's a hero of some kind, because God only knows I haven't figured it out yet. You know, I'm saving my gunpowder here, Bill and Rick, when I need to. You follow me? And he should have gotten Bonilla's agent, Yelich's agent. For all I know, they probably weren't even born then anyways. I don't know. Bonilla's maybe. Yelich, I don't know. Whatever, but... If he's my hero, then Santa Claus is Jewish, and I promise not to get too politics or religion on this thing. But it is what it is. Okay, from one loud mouth to another, I know that Rick Curti's chomping at the bit for this one. Stephen A. Smith. Can I yell louder than Stephen A. Smith? Probably. I don't know. Hope I'm not turning anybody off now that the caged lion is starting to yell into the microphone, and I hope you guys have your hearing by the end of the broadcast. Go ahead.
Candy,
rant
are
this.
You all right back there? Candy, are you all right back there?
No, she's actually taking care of some other online stuff for the Tribune.
Production? Okay.
Yeah, she's taking care of production. But I'm sure she'll probably hear it in the background. But let me tell you, when I get in a role with Stephen A. Smith, I want to see if I can out-scream him. I don't know. I need to protect. That's why I have a couple days off after this broadcast, and I'll probably need it anyway. So, all right, Curti, lead off with Smith. Is he a real journalist or is he a real jerk?
He was a real journalist. Now he's become a jerk because now that Skip Bayless left and he went to Fox Sports, now they gave him all this power and the reign to do what he wants, and he's just super annoying. I mean, it's just like, man, like, why are you getting so upset for it? It's funny that when he talked about Michael Irvin, because I saw him and Michael Irvin getting into it, and it was stupid. They're yelling and screaming and hollering, and it is about Dak Prescott, and you know, they're talking about Dak Prescott's getting underpaid. I'm like, they offered him over $30 million, and you know, and Stephen A. said he needs to sit out the season because it's a travesty that they're only paying him that much money. And I just like, what is wrong with Stephen A. Smith? I mean, he was so good, and I liked him, and now all he does is yell, scream, and holler and get upset over nothing. Even when people agree with him, he still gets upset. And I think that's the trend now, that the louder you are and the more you make noise, the more I guess people are going to listen to you. And I mean, I got to wear my earplugs hearing this guy.
Well, I don't know. Tonight you probably had to hear him with me.
Scott, what are you going to say?
Probably had to listen to your earplugs dealing with me tonight. My goodness, I don't think you expected that bit of a takeoff here from inner space, because if it were outer space, I'd be out of quarantine instead of in it, okay? But really, I mean, I hear you. You know, the most depressing part about this stupid quarantine COVID-19, we'll get to COVID-19 in a moment, is I got to watch more of this cotton picking screwball. I got to watch more of Stephen A. Smith. Oh, my goodness. Help me, God. Oh, I'd rather go ahead and watch the Andy Griffith Show, but it doesn't go ahead and give me any content to watch a dumb versus dumber or loud versus dumbass. Maybe there's a little explicit content on this broadcast when you got energy. You got loud mouth versus dumb, blah, 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 explicit, whatever. You get the feeling as in Max Kellerman, okay? So what can I tell you guys? If these two guys are an odd couple, God help me. Maybe I guess I'm missing Sanford and Son even a little bit more at this point. I really am.
Scott, Rick, do you know what ESPN stands for?
I'm almost afraid to ask in your eyes.
No.
Entertainment Sports Programming Network, supposedly.
Stupid Programming Network.
Thank you. Well, we were close. Okay. Yeah, I know what the real reason.
I've been laughing at them now ever since Chris Berman and all those guys left.
Oh, yeah.
Laughing my tuchus off.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm with you there.
This is the kind of stuff that goes on. This is the kind of stuff that goes on at ESPN. And this is exactly what I'm talking about with social media. Okay, you got a new breed of people in there. And the first thing I noticed, all of a sudden, we got an avalanche of women.
Oh, yeah.
Why we have to have diversity. So I was saying I'm seeing a network that started out as a cable TV that was straight reporting.
Right.
Who's turning into politicizing everything now and taking social platforms and then actually commenting on people, how they run their lives.
Right.
And I'm sitting back and look, just report to sports and shut your pie hole. Because half the time you don't have a foot, you have a foot in your mouth. And one of the guys I despise is Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless thought Troy Aikman was gay because he wrote an article about how the fact that Troy Aikman was never out in the clubs. First of all, I met Troy. Can I be honest with you? The guy is victim of his fame, just like Dan Marino was.
Right. I
was at a restaurant one time, a long time ago, back in the day, all right, with Dan Marino and a couple other guys at a diner, after we left a small pub, okay, in Lauderhill, Florida. The next thing I know, and I'm sitting with 3 or 4 high-profile NFL players. As soon as the diner found that Dan Marino was in there, people started lining up for his autographs. And he was really, really nice. And the waitress came and delivered our bread, our eggs to us and stuff like that. And Dan sat there and kept signing autographs. Okay, and you could see, we started eating, and I said, well, this poor guy, what a pain in the neck being famous. And he finally, some guy stands there, and you think this guy was smart enough to sit back and go, okay, I've seen you sign autographs for, 10 minutes or so. I see your eggs are getting cold. And Dan turns around and said, would you mind if I could have to eat my breakfast? The guy got angry at him. And I'm sitting back and I'm going, you can never make everybody happy. Dan's a victim of his fame. Okay, so I have to laugh at some of the situations that guys get into, okay, because of the media and its ability to now I'm getting off track because I forgot what I was going to say. There was something about Marino. What were we just talking about real quick? Because I had a real key point to make.
What a clown he's become, and then you said that ESPN.
Oh yeah, so Skip Bayless. Network. Yeah, Skip Bayless starts talking about Troy Aikman. Okay, and I'm sitting here going, this is a true story. I went to see one of my teammates. He was the head coach at the University of Colorado. We were at the Cotton Bowl. He coached Troy Aikman at UCLA. So him and him have a special bond. I'm standing on the sidelines with a really high-profile quarterback that was a teammate of mine who was at SMU. Okay, led the nation in total offense with Eric Dickerson and all that stuff. Teammate of mine in the USFL and a couple other professional golfers that were just household names. Okay, the game starts. I would say early in, just before halftime, Troy Aikman starts to show up. And there was a rumble in the end zone. Next thing you know, every girl in the stands was out following this guy like the Pied Piper. Okay, and I sat back and went, this poor guy, he lives in a bubble. Because being the Dallas Cowboys quarterback is right up there with President of the United States.
Yep.
That's why Jerry Jones bought the Dallas Cowboys. He wanted to make a name for himself. That's why Donald Trump bought the New Jersey Generals. He wanted to make a name for himself. He actually wanted an NFL team. They told him to go jump off a cliff. So he went out and he bought the New Jersey Generals. Okay, So this, to be honest with you right now, if you look at the ratings and everything, nobody's watching with the new technology. Nobody's watching TV shows. Everybody's streaming shows, but everybody's watching football because that's all they care about. Okay, and the reality of it is, we're going through a new dynamic in this country. So we have guys that Skip Bayless gets on my nerves, like you would not believe. All right, and I like Stephen A. because Stephen A. would really knew what he's talking about because he's been reporting for a long, long time, and I saw how they did this. And I will tell you right now, and I mean this in all sincerity, I hope the media turns into C-SPAN. I really do, because the nonsense that we have to hear that has nothing to do with anything, because people are trying to make a name for themselves or have some kind of political agenda. Okay, and they don't understand the dynamics, okay, of what makes an organization operate. Okay, and now it's gotten so far to the left that one of the things that motivates me is, I'm a pretty consistent guy. Okay, and I understand the business, and I'm pretty highly educated. I've been around some of the greatest players in the huddle, or guys that are in the papers every day, and they're in the locker room, and I know them socially and know them extremely well. Okay, and I just sit there and listen to the media and what they do, and I just have to laugh sometimes because of the nonsense that we hear. Okay, and I love to answer your question real quickly because I don't mean to dominate the conversation, but Stephen A. Smith, to me, I love him. I love him a lot, but he reminds me of Howard Cosell when I was a kid. Remember Howard, Scott?
Oh yeah, very much. I can give you.
Cosell at all, Rick?
I remember him.
I can tell you a story about Cosell that you don't want to hear, but actually I'm going to say it now that you brought him up anyhow. Okay, I'm covering a game on a Monday Night Football. I asked Cosell if he'd be nice enough to let me interview him. He blew me off like some disrespectful kid, like he really didn't care. Well, you know what? I had heard that other people, he's done that too, so I settled on O.J. Simpson long before Nicole Brown, and O.J. was great for me. It allowed me as a young reporter to go ahead and build my confidence interviewing a high-profile person. So contrary to what O.J. did later, he was a good influence in my early career in this industry, and that was really neat. So, yeah, I know about Howard Cosell. He made his name by being obnoxious, and that's putting it lightly. Okay, we don't want to get censored for what I'm about to say with Cosell, although we probably will anyways, but it doesn't matter. So between...
I can remember as sitting in a school bus, coming home from school, I don't know, it was in 5th or 6th grade, and he'd be on the radio, and bus driver, and people, even kids started to hate him because this is Howard Cosell. Well, he ramped it up 35 or 40 years later. Stephen A., I believe, is a great journalist, but I have to agree with Rick a little bit. There's a balance about we're getting too much saturated with, his Louis the Lip stuff because they're making him do too much.
Right.
Okay, and the American public right now is they you can put something out there like NFL concussions, and they'll make a big deal about it for 2 days, and it goes away. Okay, where because people are so avalanche with media,
right,
and they don't really latch on anything. They're outraged for 2 minutes and they're over with it. All right, and I think to the point now where people in the Americas are starting to realize that the media is nothing more than a bunch of people running their mouths and giving their opinions and not even doing the actual reporting. Okay, and so that pendulum will swing back to the middle. I really believe in it, America and its resiliency and its intelligence, but it takes us hitting a crisis before we ever do what we're supposed to have done 5 or 6 years ago. It's almost laughable. But to answer your question about Stephen A., I love him, but I agree with you, Rick. He's starting to cross the line a little bit because of increasing the vocalism and all this stuff. I still love Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon. Those are two guys that are like Scott and me.
Yeah.
They're consistent. They're old timers.
Right.
I'm more like Michael Wilbon than anybody. I swear to God, we're separated at birth. The way he talks sometimes, the way he gets on. Yeah, I love him. That's my approach. And he's a little younger than me, but he's been around a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
But Stephen A. is the new breed of cat coming and being a journalist.
Yeah, I met Michael Wilbon a long time ago in Arizona, and I should also point out, and Mike's the utmost professional, and when I was over at the National Sports Media Association's banquet, I had an opportunity to hang out with Bob Lee for a night, and you know what? He was gracious enough to let me take photos with him, and the following day after I left Carolina, he announced his retirement, but it was neat to get a photo with him, and Bob, knew that was the right time to get out, but here was the neatest part about the thing, what I told Bob is you don't have to say this, I'll say it for you, But one of the things that bothers me, okay, about ESPN is I don't particularly care for those loudmouth people that you have on the air. It's not coming from you, Bob. It's coming from me. And, looking at his body language said the whole thing. Like, it's like he said, I want to agree with you, but the body language is good enough for me. And he says, I know what you mean, or something to that effect. And Bob Lee, and I put, you talk about old school journalist. I can even take this off sports for a little bit. I've always liked Bob Lee. And, of course, let's go back to Berman back in the day. Tom Mees, as you alluded to, Bill, and George Grand back in the day. And for a while, Keith Olbermann, Dan Patrick. I don't want to get too crazy, but some of the guys I really liked in the news business that I really, really liked were Dan Rather of CBS. I always liked Tom Brokaw. Frank Reynolds is an all-time classic for me. And I don't know if I'm getting too much off subject, but you'll see where I'm going with this, guys. And I'll never forget during the Reagan assassination attempt when Frank Reynolds really chewed out his production people, says, when everybody thought that Reagan was dead and they were declaring it. And then, of course, his, was it Brady? I'm trying to remember. James Brady. Thank you, Rick. And and Frank Reynolds blew a gasket. And I actually paid tribute to him over at the Arlington Cemetery out in Virginia. And I told Frank, I said, I love you for it. I love you, Frank, because you stand for what I stand for, and that's old school. And I remember if you Google up his Wikipedia page, like you like to talk about yours, Bill, and Frank Reynolds was so more concerned about accuracy instead of getting it out there first. I'm going to take this a little bit further, guys. When I worked at Channel 7, which was the NBC affiliate in Miami many years ago, I did some behind-the-scenes work with one of the anchors. And you know what was so nice about that experience was we were the first ones that went on the air, okay? But I ended up hanging out in the back, and I had a direct thing to the producer, said, get this score on right now. And we were getting the later scores on before the CBS and ABC affiliates were doing. You know what that's called? Hard work, diligency, to make sure that everything's done right. So to make a long story short, screaming is okay to a certain extent, but when it's constant, I've got a problem. Professionalism, guys, is what we're all about. And I think that's where I disconnect with Stephen A. Smith. Are there times when I do connect with him a little bit if he's hard on the dumb banana sick de head, as we call it in Greece? Oh, yeah. Beat up on him. You might as well have a damn pinata on anyways. And Max Kellerman is a perfect pinata. He is. Okay. But I want professionalism. I want news. I want nuts and bolts personality to a certain extent. And Stephen A. Smith, to me, fails in that respect. And I would love to sit across the table and talk to him. And knowing him, he'll probably tell me, Scott, it's probably an act. Anyways, I got to do it. I don't know. I'm not putting words in his mouth. But let's face it, his following on Twitter and social media is off the charts. So ESPN's paid him to definitely have a lot of followers to take an interest in what he does. And, but you're right, Bill. Stephen A. Smith has way too much overexposure. He really does. And I'll be honest with you, this quarantine thing makes me sick, and having to watch that clown.
Don't put words in my mouth. I'm a big Stephen A. fan.
Well,
I love him. I think he's one of the best out there. But I also know that the network is turning around and saying, we need you to carry us because of programming and the ratings and all this stuff. So he's forced to step up his game and get away from it. Would have made him great. And I'm hoping he's going to be able to check himself, because as soon as things restore to normal, that pendulum will start moving back to the middle again. I do want to make one point.
Well, hold on, Bill. Chill, Bill. Hold on. I want to say something, okay? I won't put words in your mouth about what your philosophy is toward Stephen A. Smith, because I'm saying them what are coming out of my mouth. You obviously said to us, okay, that you understand what he does and how he does. My opinion as an old time journalism is yelling will turn people off, and I know that when things ultimately settle down, are they going to need to tell them to tone it back? You would hope so. But you're talking about a network, Bill, okay, that hired Rush Limbaugh, and they knew what they were getting, and when they thought he went over the deep end a little bit, they didn't hesitate to move on from him. Meanwhile, you got a guy like him, okay, crossing the line to a large extent. You know what I mean? So no, what your opinions are
for sure.
right.
Yep.
Your opinions are very objective, coming from where you are. I want to say to our audience, and we're glad to have you on our broadcast, Motor Mouth and Wild Bill Winters tonight, that every opinion that we have here not only comes from the heart and the mind, and they're only based on what we feel, and and we welcome you to contact us to give us your thoughts as well. You are listening to Motor Mouth and Wild Bill Winters here on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. Want to get that out there as well. So, all right, Bill, I just want to let you continue your thought. Your opinions are going to be what they are. They're obviously recorded opinions, and they're going to interpret them the way they are going to interpret them.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, that I don't want to listen to someone who rants all the time.
Right.
Okay, but at the same time, I know right now that we're being saturated with them, and hopefully the network will be smart enough to back off, because I honestly believe that most people feel the way we do.
Correct, Mundo.
I think we represent the normalcy out there. Can I say one thing, guys, that I just want to drive home a point about social media?
Go ahead.
And how people are learning to navigate it?
Sure.
I can remember when ESPN laid off a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it was indirectly reflected to people's social platforms and everything else. And I saw the network, politicizing some certain things. And I can remember a female reporter, I'm not going to mention her name, who works there, and it talks about football and all that stuff. And they brought in a new president from ESPN to kind of do damage control. And she went in and asked for a major pay raise. And her whole argument was, look how many people are following me on Twitter. And the guy turned around to her and said, but none of them are watching our show. And all she did was make a wisecrack about Trump being a racist. And it was so funny because she didn't understand that this has nothing to do with how much we're going to pay you. Now, Stephen A. might be a little bit of a different situation, because people generally are listening to him, but you can see the effect it's having on him as well.
Right.
And the thing that I just say that, ESPN, I used to love it, but I've watched it grow and grow and grow. And now we have a new generation coming in who has a completely different view on things. And when people come up the hard way like we have, Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, when I played for the New York Giants, we had a $2 million payroll.
Right.
A 43-man roster and a 2-man taxi, and probably put out a tougher and better product. Okay, now we have 53-man rosters that are going to 55 that'll be worth 58 and 60 in a couple of years, and the players are instantly set up for life, and they haven't done anything.
Right.
About 25% of them can't play because of the economics. And I think, and I'm going to go with this with OBrien and a lot of the New England Patriots and the teams that have cultures of being consistent winners, know how to manage money correctly. And that is a big part of networking and programming, okay? And the thing I just want to say is that ESPN has taken some major hits. All right, and quite frankly, I kind of see what's going on out there. I kind of laugh that they have to bring back Chris Berman every once in a while to steady the ship.
I think so, yeah.
All right? They've got guys that I know that are out there talking and are experts in the field, and I'm sitting back and I see the reaction by a lot of people, and I just say, I generally, they played the game. It doesn't mean to make them an expert.
Right.
Okay, and it's bordering on the ridiculous now, to the point where, guys like us and podcasts and out there might be the way to go moving future-wise, because of people's ability to understand the intellect and what's really going on. Okay, but some of the stuff that I'm seeing out there is hilarious. And, and it's because people are still learning how to master social media.
Right. Now, let me...
That's why I thought that Rex Chapman thing today was so ironic. I said, I'm going to get a chance to talk to Rick, and there I am watching a show on ESPN about Rex Chapman, who was a tremendous basketball player out of Kentucky, and he was one of the first prototypes. Scott, we always joke around about how we were like the astronauts shot up in the 60s.
Right.
Okay, and we really know what's going on, and we kind of blazed a trail for these guys, from contracts and everything else, which we'll talk about some other time.
Right.
Now we have a bunch of young kids who really don't have a lot of experience, but are experts because they look something up on Google, and they don't have the experience. So, you kind of sit back and go, it'll write itself. Okay, but that pendulum has to swing back to the middle a little bit. There has to be a little give and take between both sides.
Let me point something out, Bill. I'm not I think I know who you're talking about. I will mention the name, and I don't care if you respond. The only one that describes fits the description of who you're talking about, I believe, is Jamel Hill, because there was no love lost between her and Donald Trump. I'm not putting that in your mouth, but I followed that situation a little bit, Bill, and if I were a betting man, I would put my bet on Jamel Hill. And that's all I'm going to say about it. So, all right, with that said, well, no. Sure. Well, no, you don't need to comment. I'm not asking you for one.
I don't know. That's no comment on that.
Right, that's okay. I'm just making the assumption that I think it's Jamel Hill, and I'm leaving it at that. With that said, let's transition over to COVID-19. I know, Rick, you had a lot of interesting thoughts about it, so why don't you and Bill go ahead and talk about that. And then after you do that, what I want to do is, since you guys both have, Rick's in Charlotte and you have a history there, and in LA, you guys are going to close the show on that. But we're going to go ahead with COVID-19. I don't care which one of you goes ahead and starts this topic, but go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, this thing is just paralyzing our country right now. We're all at a standstill. Major League Baseball said they're going to start their season in May. I highly doubt it. NBA season's canceled. XFL's canceled. Everything's canceled. So the whole thing is just up in the air. The Olympics is supposed to go until 2021. And, we just have to, stay safe and wash your hands and be safe. And hopefully this thing will go away. And it's just paralyzing our country right now. And it's just causing a lot of devastation. And hopefully, once this thing goes away, I hope we do get back on track and be in the middle, because we're so divided right now. I mean, everybody is so extreme. And, and I miss the days of Deion Sanders. He was one of my favorites on ESPN. He was a true gentleman, professional, no yelling, no screaming, no nothing, no politics, no putting people down. Roy Firestone, all these great legends that I grew up watching, and it's kind of a shame that ESPN has now become WWE. I'm ready for Stephen A to get a chair and smack Max Kellerman in the back of the chair, or for them to go in a steel cage once in a while, come in dressed up like Hulk Hogan, because I don't even watch ESPN no more, because it's gotten so bad. And Fox Sports, they're kind of I guess they got to compete with Fox Sports now, because they took away half of their crew, so it's crazy what's going on.
Well, don't forget Dick Schaap either. Dick Schaap was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, Dick Schaap.
And Mitch Alva, Mike Lupica, those guys. And I've known Mitch for many, many years, dating back to when I was originally here in Fort Lauderdale. And I actually met him at a Fort Lauderdale Strikers game at the old Lockhart Stadium. And Mitch and I have known each other for a lot of years. I haven't seen him in ages, because I'm here in South Florida and he's up in Detroit. And he's, and it's funny, when I went back to Detroit, I got to see Mitch on a more regular basis. And he's prominent. He works at WJR. But yeah, Dick Schaap. I mean, you guys nailed it. I mean, there's so many great broadcasters that were on ESPN. But yeah, this COVID-19, to me, it's the most unprecedented thing I've ever seen in my life. We don't even know who the enemy is on here and how to attack it. We're just waiting for a vaccine. I've always liked to compare it that we thought Vietnam was bad, but Vietnam is nothing compared to this thing. And Vietnam obviously spurted out Agent Orange. So, anytime you go ahead and talk about any kind of a disease or attributed to chemicals or contagious or whatever, that is pretty bad. But yeah, but Rick, tell me what your overall thoughts are on COVID-19, and Bill, you follow after that.
It's devastation, and we have to see what happens. Like they said, we're on their timeline. We're on their time. We've got to wait for them, and the only thing we can do to combat this is to get some type of vaccine out there. And it's just paralyzing everything, and it's horrible. And you got people saying that this is a hoax and this is fake, and now they're saying, oh, it's not that bad, and people just not listening. Like our state right now, we're all in a complete shutdown because people don't want to listen and just think that they're better, and it's not going to hit me. I'll be fine with it. And then you got other people who are buying toilet paper and, going around and, cleaning out all the markets and emptying everything because, the apocalypse is happening. So I've always been a middle guy. Be careful, be safe, but we're going to get through this. And that's how I just tell people we're going to get through this because our country's strong. But you got like extreme on both sides. People who think this is fake, or you got people who think, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. Let me go down my bunker with my toilet paper.
Yeah, well, one thing I want to add to that, Bill, and then you can take over, is the incident with those spring breakers. 18 of them got diagnosed with it. That, to me, was absolutely self-destructive and totally stupid. Really?
Yep.
I mean, and I can tell you how many parents would never send their kids down there knowing you have such a pandemic rocking the whole world, and you're going for spring break with the potential contact that you have. I mean, that's just one of many situations that, to me, stands out in my mind. All right, Bill, you take the COVID-19, and where do you want to go with it?
Well, the first thing I've always learned during a crisis is calm down and relax.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Aaron Rodgers. Relax.
Yeah, well, you know what? Candy's here, and she's hearing that now. The relax, Bill.
Oh, you came out of the catacombs, have you, Candy?
I did.
Yeah. So
I love you. Thank you. That's the first thing I'm going to throw out. The first thing I'm going to say is that we will get through this as a country. And when you really look at how things are run, I'm a social studies teacher, taught economics. I teach my kids about a thing called recipes. R for what's the religion, E is for what the environment is. The geography. C, what are the cultures? What do they believe in? How do they dress? What do they eat? The I, what's the invention that has made this country stand out? It makes them operate. Then the P, what's the politics, the government? And most importantly, the E, the recipes, is what's the economics. We have an economic system. The first thing I said to Scott when I started with the show is my motivation is I see Barstool Sports and I listen to them and I'm going, if I ever got in an arena with them, I'd spank them silly. And then I ran into a guy by the name of Scott Morganroth and his wonderful wife, who are so committed to building this network, who has built a really good team. And Rick, it's a pleasure to meet you. But my point is that pendulum is so far to the left right now because of all these things that it's almost laughable about what they're saying about the media. And, I will say this, it'll be fine, but we have to get, when I say about the E for economics, we need to get people back to work within 12 weeks. We'll have economic collapse. And people are anxious to go back to work right now. And I think what's going to happen is technology is going to be a good factor. We're going to have a lot of deaths. There's no doubt about it. But I think we're going to be able to neutralize it because America's pretty good when it comes to a crisis. Okay, and, I'm listening to a lot of this stuff going on. I mean, Trump just had a meeting with the president of China. All right, and, and already they're running it. Everybody's trying to work together because this is a worldwide problem. Okay, and I think a lot of good's going to come out of it. But, what you do during a storm is you batten down the hatches, everybody rows the boat the right way, and you get through it, and you come out bigger and better and more thankful for what you have. And hopefully this huge negative is going to be a positive for the rest of the world, and we're going to stop all this nonsense and come into rooms and work through things to solve problems. Okay, because right now we have a young generation that has no respect for anything, and they're out on the beaches on spring break. We have a young generation coming up who is behind them, who's probably going to see my generation, who was old school, that has norm because we had to work for everything, because we weren't instant millionaires overnight. And then generation that represents Rick generation is sitting back and going, yeah, there's some good things here, but what the hell is going on here? Then you have a young generation that's totally messed up. I mean, I sat back and I'm looking at kids that are high school quarterbacks. I watched a show the other day called QB1, and I just had to laugh on Netflix. And I'm sitting back and I'm laughing and I'm going, these kids are being told a false narrative, that they're the number one quarterback in the country and they're going to, be a pro and all this stuff. And the way they act, they're like little divas, and then they get to college and they get hurt, and they physically couldn't hold up anyway because they don't know well enough because it's all hype. Well, the real young generation, the young kids that are coming up, they're going to have to learn how to handle the technology, and hopefully they will, so that we'll all come together. But we all got to row this boat, all, 4 different generations. The real youngsters that are coming up, that are playing with their iPhones, that are sitting in their cradles. Okay, the 20-year-olds that are sitting back now and telling everybody what to do, because they're experts because they Googled everything and now have no experience.
Right.
Then you got the guys like Rick who are in between. They've been raised on technology but have been around long enough to listen to the John Saunders. Then you have the old parts like Scott and I, who are still being mentored by the Marv Levy's and the older guys who came up the hard way. Jason Garrett's father used to sit there and bark at me about what a cupcake I was. And I sat back and went, it's all economics.
Right.
That's my point. All right, so the rest of the world doesn't understand that. Okay, and, I will say this. This is the funniest quote that I saw, because I was thinking of something I could say about this. And I say this is funny. And just give me a second to pull it. The central conservative truth is that culture, not politics, determines the success of a society. The central liberal truth is that politics can change the culture and save it from itself. Okay? And we're sitting there, that's exactly what we're at right now. And I really, truly believe that we will get through this in a matter of a couple of months. And I'm looking forward to the challenge, but everybody needs to relax and stop all the hype and pull the boat together, because I'm watching some of the stuff that the people that I used to know that I thought I knew posting stuff and it's so far to the left that I'm wondering if they can even think.
So
that's all I wanted to say.
Let me point out one thing, and then I'm going to let you guys compare the L.A. Charlotte stories as we close out the broadcast. The only thing, and I never talk politics here, is I don't care if you're Donald Trump or you're George Washington. There is no president on the planet in any year that could handle it any better, because this is just something that, the presidents are paralyzed here, and they just have to do the best they can. So whether Donald Trump, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, you know what? To me, you all get a mulligan on something that's this difficult. You really do. With that said, okay, now we're going to lighten things up a little bit here. And, Rick obviously has an extensive Charlotte background, born in California, and a California guy. So why don't you go ahead and have a little bit of fun about the good old days of Charlotte and California, and you guys can go ahead and compare notes.
All right. I'll start off by asking Rick a couple of questions.
Okay.
All right, so I get a good idea. Rick, did you go to Torrance High School?
Yes, I did.
What year did you graduate?
1994.
Okay. And when did you come to Charlotte?
I moved here in 2006.
Okay. I kind of got a time zone on where you're at, so now I can listen to you talk, because it'll allow me to plug in some stuff that I'm going to ask you. That'll be a lot of fun. That'll really kind of make a point about the generational difference and, how we see things.
Okay.
Is there anything you want to ask of me or anything like that before we proceed?
Well, it's been an honor to have you on the show. I love talking to you. You're like the encyclopedia. You know everything. And I love it. I love that you're bold. You go out there and you just say how you feel. And I'm kind of like the same way. I just tell people these are just my opinions. I don't have any bias. I just go on and say what I say. I get slammed here by the Panther fans about Cam Newton. Everybody here is mourning Cam Newton's gone. I've been telling them that he should have been gone 3 years ago. And I like what Tepper's doing. He's just rocking the boat again. And I do believe that organization will turn around, and hopefully one day we'll win a Super Bowl. We don't have a championship here in Charlotte, so hopefully one day that will happen. Hopefully one day we'll get Major League Baseball and see what happens. And I just want to say thank you for being on the show, and I'll do anything I can to help us out and get the word around about us and about Sports Exchange.
And this show as well, Rick, Motormouth, the Wild Bill Winters. Now you're involved in at least two of them. So, yeah, the Sports Exchange obviously is our big show, and this one here is getting up there pretty quick. So, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have to laugh a little bit. I want to ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
Rick.
Okay.
All right. Did you ever hear of a team called the Carolina Storm?
The Carolina Storm? No.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In 1982, I was out of ball for a year. I tore my knee up. They told me I'd never play ball again. I was working as a broker down in South Florida, and I get a call from a general manager by the name of Bugsy Engelberg, who tells me he wants me to go play for a team called the Carolina Storm. And he said they're going to have a new pro football league that's going to play in the spring. So I went up to Carolina, and I immediately jumped in with a bunch of guys. And basically, the league was called the American Football Association. So, when you Google it, it was a professional football league that operated from 1977 to 1983. The best thing I can say is like the NBA T League. Okay? The Carolina Storm were the best team in the nation. Okay? And we had teams like the Oklahoma Thunder, Tulsa Mustangs, Alabama Vulcans, Alabama Magic, Kentucky Trackers, Jacksonville Firebirds, the Orlando Americans, the Carolina Storm, used to be called the Carolina Chargers, the San Antonio Charros, the Austin Texans, the Dallas Wranglers, Houston Hotshots, Houston Armadillos. I mean, if you Google this, it's a great Bill Kilmer was the commissioner, and we got 1% of the gate. And our team, if you go to my Facebook page, because, I basically sat down and I started getting involved in this. I just retired. And I run young, so I'm a little bit of an anomaly. I was talking to some of my friends. They said, you want to connect with people, you need a Wikipedia page. You need to get a Facebook account and all this stuff. And I'm like, come on, man, you know what I mean? But so what I did is I posted some pictures inside my album, because as we move forward, I even have a YouTube channel. And a lot of these games are classics, but they're historic. And what I'm hoping as we move forward that, Rick, I'm very impressed with your knowledge, and your, what I call even keel. Scott and I are, we were talking, he was telling me about his time with the Gastonia team, and he was educating me because he spent some time in North Carolina. And I learned about Charlotte pretty quickly.
Well, don't forget about Sammy Sosa and Juan Gonzalez, sick to man.
Yeah.
Ricky Jr. Yeah.
Right. And, and so when I'm up there, and I'll just call it Tobacco Row. That's me. Now, I went up to Charlotte, and all I saw was a football field, an apartment complex, and a buses. And it was basically like minor leagues. But we had Reggie Smith, who went on to play in the NFL, and we had one of the best black quarterbacks that I ever saw playing, a kid by the name of Ellsworth Turner. And Ellsworth was legendary. And we just blew out teams. And it was fun to run with those guys, but I used it as a stepping stone to get into the USFL. And two of my teammates wound up making it off that team. Actually, three of my teammates. Bobby Hopkins, who had to be the world wrestling champion at the time. Okay, and Reggie. Okay, and, there's a lot of talent out there. And the way things are today, a lot of guys just need opportunity. So Charlotte was very, very special to me. Okay, but I also watched, I used to sit back and go, this city eventually is going to have an NFL team. And 20 years later, they had an NFL team. I think they started the Panthers, in 1993?
Yeah, it was them and Jacksonville at the same time.
10 years later. Okay, and you could see it because we drew, I think for our last couple of games, we were up to around 15,000, 20,000 fans. Okay, and I have a picture of the stadium being packed and us being introduced, and it was just awesome. So I really enjoyed my football career because they got, we worked for our money and we all bounded together. Okay, we didn't have all this social media and all this fluff, that I see the players going through now, to the point where we call the NFL the no fun league.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the USFL was a very interesting situation there. So when I looked at you on your Facebook account, which is very nice, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, I saw that you were from Torrance High School because I spent a lot of time out in Southern California in the 70s and the 90s because I used to train there at Gold's Gym in the off season. So I've watched the evolution of physical fitness from the West Coast and how it's come to the East Coast. Hell, my buddy bought Gold's Gym, Pete Gronkowski. Okay, and he's turned into a multi-millionaire. So, it's fun to watch people like us have a dream and a vision, and you never know where you're going to be. So I remember Chris Berman and those guys starting with basically a cable TV and a satellite dish you could shoot golf balls in up in Bristol. I can remember the first cable TV thing they did at Princeton in a swim meet. I can remember the cable was all over this NCAA floor during the women's swim meet. Okay, and how it mushroomed. So now, we have social media now and podcasts and everything else, and the dynamic is changing out there, and history has a tendency to repeat itself. So I really enjoy the fact that you are from Charlotte. It's just you came from Southern California because, to live in those two different areas, you get a different perspective on things because of, the different views I think the farther west you go, I think a little bit more liberal you are. You know, and I saw the difference when I was in Santa Monica in the 70s versus going out back there in the 90s, and just how Gold's Gym had gone from a small gym where women would look in the window and were afraid to come in. Arnold Schwarzenegger was down the street in World Gym. Okay, Pumping Iron was coming out. Okay, then I go out there in the 90s, and it's this huge gym, and it's 40% women. So, you know, I've seen the evolution of a lot of things, and my ability to see the big picture and where it's going to be 5 or 10 years has always been my talent. And I put myself in a position and align myself with people that I believe just have great passion for what they do and are consistent and just love what they do. And those are the ones that usually become successful because we have the proper perspective while we go about doing it. And so I really just wanted to ask you if you knew about the Storm. You might get a kick out of it. If you go around Charlotte and you ask some of the older timers about it, I bet you they'll sit down and say, listen, kid, let me tell you. And it'll be interesting as we have, as a dialogue to hear, you know, if you run into some people that are maybe Scots in my age in their 50s and 60s that know about the Carolina Storm because it was a legendary team. And it was just so much fun to play up there. And it was a great introduction of what Carolina was eventually going to morph into. All right, so I just want to get that out there.
Well, I
and of
remember
course, Scott with Gastonia.
Yeah. Well, I know there was a football league called the World Football League, and there was actually a professional football team actually called the Charlotte Hornets, but the league only lasted 1 year. Do you remember the World Football League?
Oh, yeah. I sure do. In fact, the AFA was concentrated, you know, and served as a second-tier professional football league between the World Football League, which folded in 1975, and the United States Football League, which began to play in 1983. So from 1977 to 1983, the American Football Association was the evolution of pro football, basically, pro football outside the NFL. It never was major league status, but it was one step behind with some of the guys, and all they need to do is get reps.
Yeah, I remember.
Just like the XFL.
I remember that league, and they the Detroit Wheels, and Bubba Weiss was the quarterback for that team, and I think they played at Eastern Michigan University, and we were awful. I mean, that's all I can tell you. But, yeah, the World Football League, I don't know, they were just awful. I mean, you want to talk about a ragtag team, this is definitely it. I mean, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time in the World Football League. You guys you guys are making this show a worldly amount of fun. So there's a little transition there. You know, we're touching on a lot of key points. So any closing thoughts before I give you guys an opportunity to promote your platforms?
No, we pretty much had a good time.
Yeah, I think we kind of talked about everything. You know, we went from what to do on social media to a crisis to some politics to old school football. And, when we talk about these two, talk about the World Football League or the USFL, I see a lot of the XFL I think about, and hopefully the XFL will have a long shelf life, and hopefully it'll be very, very successful.
Well, let's see. Maybe we'll have
fun to watch.
I expect us to have a long shelf life with the three of us on the air, because I think it's been a whole lot of fun, guys. What do you think?
Absolutely.
All right,
for next week.
Huh?
Looking forward to it.
Oh, well, I'll make it work. We'll get the schedules coordinated. But meanwhile, all right, with that said, okay, Rick, lead off. Tell people how they can get a hold of you through social media and whatnot.
I'm the founder and CEO of the Charlotte Bats. We have a website at www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there, and we have a media page on there. You can see all my interviews on there. I'm also on the Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball. And our email address, if you have any questions or any comments, or you want to go on there and call me an idiot, that's fine with me. I don't care. We're at charlottebatsbaseball@gmail.com. That's CLTBatsBaseball@gmail.com. So you can contact me on all those forums, and I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. So
yeah, I think you have
me on there.
You have a personal page too, if I heard correctly, Rick Curti on Twitter as well, right?
Okay. I have a Rick Curti page on there as well, and that's just me, and I post all my goofy pictures and about me, and of course all about MLB in Charlotte. So just contact me on there, and like I said, whether you agree, disagree, or you want to call me an idiot, that's fine.
All right,
I'm cool with it.
Well, Bill, I'm wondering if you have a new follower or subscriber for your Bill Winters YouTube channel. What do you think?
Well, you know me, I'm an ex-broker, so I try to close somebody when, every day and open up a new account or whatever. Rick, this is going to say the first thing is I have a Wikipedia page, Bill Winters Football. I can sit down one time, and I will tell you, I'm such an anomaly that when I actually just wrote it up, like Wikipedia actually wrote it for me. Then the NFL came in, and I'm sitting there going, geez, I didn't even put that I was with the Washington Redskins. The next thing you know, they put that in there.
Wow.
And I was on the developmental roster, and I'm going, yeah. So I kind of understand how the media operates because you're dealing with programming and a computer. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I kind of sit back and go, this is another thing that gets me one step ahead of everybody else. I've seen the evolution of technology, taking someone that nobody knew about and all of a sudden, plugging it in and then having a brief outline and then watching Wikipedia come in and make me better than I really was as far as I'm concerned because, I'm serious. It's kind of funny.
Great.
I look at guys, that played 6 years in the NFL and they got all these asterisks next to their name and never got on the field. And I was the exact opposite. I was one of these guys that never came off the field, was playing 60 minutes all the time, staff for punching field goals, played center, guard, tackle, tight end. We just had a blast playing football. We had a great lifestyle, and we earned our money. But we had one of the worst labor contracts in pro sports at the time. So one of the things that I'm starting to realize is that through education, particularly with this new collective bargaining agreement, we're so far ahead of the yield curve that I honestly think that our followers are going to love us. They're going to get behind us, and we're going to affect a lot of social change, which I believe is what this whole social media stuff is about. It's not about me, and it's not about you, or it's not about Scott. It's our ability to give people a perspective on the right way to do things because we've done it the right way all our lives and had a lot of fun, and we're well-balanced, and we're very happy people. I know a lot of people out there that are freaking miserable, and you would think that they would have everything. And it's led to a lot of opiate addiction and a lot of other stuff. So I don't want to get into it on a platform. Let me get back to answering the question. Just go to my Wikipedia page, Bill Winters Football. You'll see my body of work. I have a YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and type in my name in the YouTube search engine, Bill Winters Football, you'll see a purple circle that comes up with me wearing a Nike hat. And I think it's so funny on the Nike hat, we couldn't find one to fit my bucket head. When my buddy was building my Wikipedia page, there had to be a Nike hat in the corner. So they put this on, and he put the sunglasses on. He says, I'm going to, do this. And the next thing I know, the Nike deal with Colin Kaepernick. So now it's a political statement. All I'm doing is wearing a hat. But I said, that's what I'm talking about. So I said, well, just leave it. It'll be a great way to carry on a conversation. So it's my YouTube channel, Bill Winters Football. There's some classic games in there. Done some acting, so that's in there too. And what we hopefully do, Candy, our producer and everything, is we're going to be able to put our podcast on there eventually because we're still building the infrastructure, which is going to be a lot of fun in our business model.
Right.
And then I've also got a Facebook account. If you go to facebook.com/bwinters55, you'll see a circle with me looking like out of a porthole. That's my Facebook page. And what's really interesting is I try to post pictures that are relevant to the conversations we have on our podcast. Because the young generation today, you all have ADD. Because we laugh about it as coaches. Because you've been raised on technology. So we have to get your attention real quick. So the quickest way to do that is a PowerPoint, rather than going up and looking something up in a card catalog and reading a book. It's just working smarter. But so that's what the rationale for building the YouTube channel. So that gives us a lot of street credibility and some classic games in there. Trump is in there, Marcus Dupree, Doug Flutie, Herschel Walker, Steve Young, Jimmy Kelly, and we're all coming up the way. So people will learn quickly about how to connect the dots in their lives right now. Because so I'm looking forward to that challenge. Okay, and then the last thing is I've got, of course, our podcast. Scott, I do our own show. And I'm also a guest on the Sports Exchange, which I love to do. It was great listening to you guys last night. I listened to the show, Rick. I was very impressed with the guys that are on there. So it's nice to know we got a great team and a great network moving forward. So just go to Spotify, iHeart, or Apple, or any of those podcast search engines. Type in Motormouth, 2 words, and Wild Bill Winters, and you'll see our show come up. And since you're sitting home doing quarantine, doing nothing, go through some of our shows, and I think you'll have some fun listening to, Scott and I, and and eventually Rick as he, joins our audience on our show.
Right.
It'll be a lot of fun, and we'll grow together as an audience. And, I just, so that's about it. I'd like to know what Twitter is, and I'm going to learn from you, Rich. I know I have a Twitter account, but I don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have to learn.
Well,
So I'm not even going to do that right now.
Bill Winters, hashtag sports, football. Hashtags are the key. That's what gets your followers.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And let me close out the program by giving the Tribune its prompts. First of all, just so you guys know, I'm wearing a navy blue Los Angeles Rams hat with the old logo. Okay. And since you have ties out in L.A., Bill, and Rick was born there, and I'm a member of the Southern California Sports Broadcasters, in addition to American Sportscaster Association and National Sports Media Association and Detroit Sports Media, you can follow me on Twitter. It's Scoop, SCOOP, and Bill's kind of getting the hang of that name too, okay, with 5 3s. Count to 5, and then you got 3s, okay, 3, handful of 3s. Also, follow us at Tribune South as well on Twitter. We have an Instagram page, South Florida Tribune, and of course we have a South Florida Tribune Facebook page as well. And I'm heavily involved with LinkedIn. I can't tell you guys enough how much LinkedIn has done to help us build the growth of this organization, both the broadcasting side as well as the online publication side. So, what can I tell you? You can find all of our broadcasts on the South Florida Tribune, which is www.southfloridatribune.com. And most of all, the biggest prompt I want to give is to my beautiful wife, Candy, who, in my opinion, is the backbone of this whole thing. She gets everything up there. She fills in it as a co-host from time to time. Without Candy, we wouldn't be able to get a lot of this stuff done. I can only arrange the guests, get the content, but she's the brains behind this operation. When you have two dumb banana stick-the-mola heads like you and I, Winters, that don't know nothing about technical, she keeps us straight. So as much as possible. So we have a great thing going here, and I'm looking forward to continue building. And Rick, like I said, now that you've passed your first test with Winters and I, we're looking forward to having a lot more fun and growing the brand not only with Bill and I, but we'd love to have you on board as well. All right, buddy? So
Absolutely.
So meanwhile, on behalf of Bill Winters, Rick Curti, myself, Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, getting a little bit loud again as we go ahead and hit the twilight of the night, okay? You're listening to Motor Mouth and Wild Bill Winters here in the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. So meanwhile, everybody have a great weekend, and we'll be back on the air next week. Good night, everybody.